Okay, ready?
Yep.
As you know, this is the Measure of an Episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes a Star Trek episode a genuine Star Trek episode, and not just television, not just seemingly soap opera-esque melodrama. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jonathan, and we do this using 3 objective criteria. The first one is there sci-fi that is woven into the plot? Like something that has been woven in.
Yeah.
Is that sci-fi presented in a novel or unique manner? And is there a moral or ethical dilemma that a character must face? I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Paul, and this week we watched Star Trek Voyager, Season 6, Episode 13, Virtuoso. The Doctor...
Just letting that sink in for a moment.
I was like, oh, ah.
Yeah. I was actually thinking, like, I'm disappointed that there's no wordplay there. I like the episodes where the title has a double meaning.
I'm trying to think what that would be.
There isn't, and that's why I was...
No, I mean, if we were to retitle it.
Oh.
We might not have enough time on this podcast.
Right.
To retitle them.
Coda?
Explain how it's a double meaning.
It's his final days on the Enterprise, and it's also supposed to be his final performance.
Yeah,
No, all right.
nah. It's good.
But it's on par with Virtuoso, like flip a coin.
Virtuoso it doesn't really describe anything about the episode.
Nope.
Coda, I guess, does a better job of that.
Yeah. Thanks.
The blurb is the Doctor's passion for music spills over into his personal life. And I said this last week, where it seems like he's a professional musician, and his passion for his music is like he's beating his wife with his music somehow or something like that. Like that's what it feels like.
Or he's singing to all of his patients. Yeah.
Yeah.
Singing at all of his patients.
I actually was kind of intrigued by this episode. This wasn't just a normal... I mean, it kind of turns into one. But this had a real nugget of interesting science fiction.
Yes. But it was also very much like the original series where... Was there a B-plot?
Not really.
Yeah. And I feel like there was a lot there, but it was kind of the same thing where it was the same conversations about how great the Doctor is as a singer sarcastically and how he's neglecting his duties. And he didn't care because he was adored by these people. Like, it just felt like it was that same conversation over and over. And so I feel like a B plot would have helped really tighten that up and make it a more interesting storyline.
Well, they were making first contact with a superior, technologically speaking, race.
Right.
And they did nothing with that. I was expecting... I mean, granted, it would have been lame and kind of stale to have this seemingly advanced race be diabolical in some way.
Right.
Like something that they were doing that I was kind of half expecting that to happen, but it didn't. It was more about the Doctor the whole time.
Yeah.
And
well, yeah, I expected them to steal the Doctor. You know, I expected him to kind of say this, like, thank you so much for this opportunity, but I don't, I've got duties on the ship that I need to clean up.
He's got to clean up duty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was in high school, it was instilled upon me during a musical production that the word rhymes with beauty and not booty. And there have been several times as a teacher where we've been talking about things that are your duty, and all of the students, when they say it and they're talking about duty, like they snicker at each other. But because I say duty, they kind of look at each other like wanting to laugh, but they're like, well, that's not duty. That's not funny. So,
like, hey, you fooled us.
Right. But anyway, so he...
By the way, if you say duty, that just... I mean, I feel like that's worse than saying duty in the sense of, oh, you said something funny, right?
Why?
Because it feels like... I feel like if I was how old are your kids? 10 years old?
Yeah.
I would want to make fun of you.
Right, because that's not how it's pronounced. Right.
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 I'd be like... It's another word. It's another reason. It's another reason to laugh. That's not poop, but just idiot, right?
Yeah, but poop trumps everything. Like, it is not funnier for me to say duty, because it's not poop.
Right. Now, does Trump poop everything?
I mean, to some people, he poops on everything.
You know, that's called a Russian reversal. I learned that on YouTube. So maybe I didn't learn anything at all. That's actually not true. But anyway.
Oh, so not only does A B, but also B A?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you meant pooping on everything.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
But I was kind of enthralled by the fact that this episode opens with kind of a mini oner, where he's helping somebody. This is sort of after the captain's log.
Okay.
He's treating somebody, and the camera kind of follows him around. It's sort of not. They don't cut for I think like a minute or so like that. Which I don't know. I feel like if you're going to do a oner, do a oner. Don't do this half oner thing where it's kind of. I mean, it seemed like it was just a reason to save time, not to flex on the show. But
like if we do this in one take, then we don't have to.
We can go home.
Yeah,
it's lunchtime.
We can stay under budget. Well, and also, it was, even as a mini oner, like there wasn't anything cinematically impressive with it. You know?
The medical bay is not that big.
Yeah,
it's not like they were going down. They didn't go out the door and then into another room.
Well, yeah, and there wasn't
out the door.
Right, and there wasn't a lot of choreographing to do with it with multiple people. You know, it was the doctor and those 5 other people who were sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was something interesting.
Yeah.
And then he starts singing "I've been working on the railroad."
Right.
And
because it's in the public domain. That had to have been why.
That's a good point. Yeah. But nobody knows. I guess the doctor, if anybody knows the lyrics to the second verse of "I've been working on the railroad," it's the doctor, because he has access to Google.
Right.
But it just felt very, it just felt kind of lame.
Yeah.
Of all the songs he could be singing.
Well, right. And why, after hearing that, were they, like, they should have started with opera. Like, that is what his thing is. So he should have just been humming some aria to himself and had them be fascinated by that. And then they're obsessed with opera and, its mathematical properties. And we get to jazz, and they're not interested in jazz because, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just whatever feels good. And they're so scientifically advanced, like they were kind of at the very end, just to jump ahead a little bit, they were politely clapping at the emotional response that the doctor was giving. But then when the new doctor came out with his technically advanced performance, they went apeshit over it.
See, I took it another way. I took that it wasn't the style or genre of music. It was just the fact that it was music. They found it mathematically interesting. And it doesn't matter what it mattered to them that the doctor was singing it, and they didn't really go into why.
Right.
Because I would feel like that any kind of pitch would be interesting to them.
Yeah.
Not just because, Harry Kim and the Kim Tones makes their debut. And that would be just as interesting, I would think, if you're able to hear math, I guess, which is what was so interesting to them, because I kind of took this race as a race that was somehow kind of nice and polite, but bereft of any emotion and empathy. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought to myself, "Oh, that's interesting. That all they can hear is math,
right?
And all they can that's how they see the world, and it's kind of Vulcan adjacent."
Yeah,
where
I agree with that.
Vulcans are just very dry. They are the what are they called? The Corum?
Yeah.
The Komar. They are not dry. They seem to have enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
And that was sort of the science fiction bit for me. That here you have a race who is so hyper-focused on the exploration of math and this new expression of math, which music is.
Right.
Yeah. That this would be a whole new discovery for them, that anything else is peripheral. That for some reason they didn't go into why the doctor specifically, because if it is just somebody singing, who cares who's singing it, or who cares what's making the noise? Mm-hmm. I wanted to know why the doctor is, just because he introduced them to it. Or, was there some sort of...
Yeah, I mean, that was the impression that I got, but we're inferring at that point.
I think that the Komars were an inconsistently conceived race, that they didn't care. I mean, they didn't care. I mean, and they made, like at the end, like you were saying, in that final concert where the doctor is giving a very emotionally charged performance, they tried to outline that by bringing Janeway to tears, which has never happened before in Janeway's life.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I must have
Maybe
looked
she was
away.
just bored to tears.
Maybe. Well, also, no. To give her credit, she may have not known that the Doctor was being replaced. There we go, on the planet, and so she genuinely thought that this was the last performance that she was going to see of the Doctor. And after spending 6 years with the guy, she's got a relationship with him, and so it might have been, like kind of just a realization that she wasn't going to be like seeing any of these anymore, and so she was genuinely having an emotional reaction,
Right.
Which is
yeah,
nice.
it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good way to show that this was a emotional performance for the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I liked that just peripherally that the Doctor wasn't what you would call like a perfect singer.
Right.
They could have hired an opera person who was very technically and emotionally trained, where it just sounded like dead on. Like the way that you would expect a computer to sing, which would be very precisely, but his singing is sort of, it's Robert Picardo singing.
Exactly.
So it's not perfect. It's not, he's good at it, but he's not a professional.
Right.
Anyway, I felt like that's the science fiction for me, is this race. Mm-hmm. And they're very advanced, and they are seemingly hyper-focused on this thing. Why? What do they like about it so much, and what is so interesting? I don't know. It felt like the Doctor story of his ego exploding and then him wanting to abandon Voyager. It got stale for me. It felt like, kind of like what you were saying. We needed something to distract us from, to at least diverge a little bit from him having an ego and pissing everybody off.
Yeah. I mean, it is always fun moments, but when that's what we're doing over and over again with nothing cut in between, then it gets old, it gets repetitive. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to even go through the plot. Although I will say that Paul Williams makes cameo. The first person that comes up that's actually on the planet, and he kind of interrupts Janeway when they put him on screen. It's like, we want to hear the Doctor sing this music you've been talking about. And Paul Williams is actually a very famous composer. He kind of makes his way through television and movies as a cameo.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting. I was like, that looks like Paul Williams.
That's funny.
And he famously, if you ever hear him speak, the first thing out of his mouth will usually be a joke about his height.
Okay.
And so he was well suited for this particular episode because and without bringing attention to it, so bravo, this whole race was sort of diminutive.
Yeah.
When the one time they kind of hint at science fiction and not just throw it in our face like a cream pie.
Is there diminutive nature?
Yeah, just an element of a particular race that they don't call attention to by having a conversation about it.
Right. Yeah. And nobody got mad about it and saying like, "Listen here, shorty."
I would have appreciated that actually. So there's a point in the whole thing where the Doctor falls in love, and they've fallen in love with the Doctor, and it seems like the perfect match where the Doctor can fully express his ego, however he wants, and
they will love it.
They will love it.
Yeah.
And so he says, I'm going to leave Voyager. This is way better than Voyager.
Well, yeah.
And, he's a computer. And by this point, he has his hollow emitter. Mm-hmm. It makes sense from the point of view of the Doctor's character. That's arguable, that he would make this decision to leave. But I feel like it would have been better for the show for something else. And I came up with a little plot line that's a little bit better.
Okay.
The idea that the Komars, they ask the Doctor to stay. And he's flattered, of course, and maybe he hems and haws about it, but he ultimately decides, the captain's right, I'm going to stay and perform my duties on board the Voyager. Sorry, thank you for listening to me sing. And they said, no. Mm-hmm. If you stay, we have technology that will get you home in 5 years.
Oh, okay.
So,
there we go. Yeah.
The Doctor has a dilemma. Mm-hmm. Does he stay and get the Voyager home in a relatively small amount of time?
Right.
So it'd be a very tough thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what he would have decided or how it would have gone. Probably if they did do it that way, they would have discovered that they're killing babies or something like that. You know, that's how Voyager usually gets out of it, is the morality of taking it, not just the choice itself,
Right.
you know, of making a hard choice. They usually are bailed out by some sort of moral thing.
That would have been amazing if there was, I don't know if it ever happens, but if there was an episode where it really is just a moral choice. You know, they can't get the technology, not an ethical one, you know, but it's like that, you know, they have to give up their friend. I mean, everybody's making the tough choice at that point, where the doctor is saying, like, do I sacrifice going home with Voyager for everyone else to go home? And Voyager's kind of saying the same thing. Do we sacrifice the doctor so the rest of us can go home? You know, and obviously they want to do both, but they wind up having to choose one or the other at the end, and they do choose that single person. You know, like there's always the episodes where Janeway goes back for that one person and ignores the prime directive or the diplomatic way and decides to go the Janeway. And
Nice. How have we not thought of that yet?
I don't know. We have.
We have?
Yeah.
Well, this is the first time hearing of it.
Nope. There's an episode earlier on where we say the right way, the wrong way, and the Janeway.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised we didn't bring it back earlier.
Right. I mean, well, because it gets stale. We got to do it like once every 2 years.
Okay. Good call. So we're on track.
Right. But yeah, just something along those lines where they do have to make that actual choice, and it's not like you were saying, you know, they can't take it because the planet stole it themselves and they don't really know how it works, or that the planet uses that technology to kill babies and so they don't want to use that technology. You know, like it is genuinely, we can't accept this offer because we need our person back, or, you know.
Or maybe go the other way. Maybe put Janeway and Voyager down the path of something immoral, where they want to keep the doctor. They're kind of holding the doctor hostage in a way.
Right.
Or they're holding their trip home back hostage. You know, they're saying, because they could have just given them the technology, said, here, just take it.
Yeah.
You know, why not?
Right.
And they have some disdain. The Comars have some disdain for Voyager because they're so inferior as a race. And they're kind of put up, and this is kind of like, that's why they're kind of Vulcan adjacent.
Right.
Is the Vulcans aren't very nice either, in a different way. And so why not say, hey, here's the doctor. We're going to give you the doctor. And they just give them like a photocopy of the doctor, you know, enough to get them by, where it's not really an ethical trade or a moral trade where they're getting what they asked for in exchange for the technology, but they think it's enough, and they feel like every day we're out here in the Delta Quadrant, our lives are at risk, and we feel that this is a fib. It's white enough. It's not white, but it's in the shades of gray, if you will, enough to lie and get the technology and skedaddle. And I don't know. I mean, this whole idea of a computer program. Why can't they just make a copy of the doctor and give it to them?
Right.
Which effectively they kind of do anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, along those lines, I don't know if this ever happens, and I don't like. I feel like it would just upset too many people. But they discuss it, and they decide that yes, it is worth sacrificing the computer program for, you know, they're basically swapping technology for technology, even though it does appear as a person. And everybody, the doctor and the crew and all, decide that is what's best, and they will leave the doctor behind for this technology to get them home, you know, in whatever 2 years. And they reconvene, and the alien race says, you know, we studied the technology and we built a copy of ourselves. We don't need your doctor anymore, and we're not going to give you the technology.
I like that. I mean, that's kind of what happened. I mean, in ours, it's different, but it's what happened.
Right.
He was replaced very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. But there was more about the emotional side for the doctor of, you know, how fleeting fame is, that, you know, Janeway tried to tell him because she's so right and so smart.
Right. Can I tell you as an aside that I hated, I mean, Janeway was right.
Yes.
Right? But I hated that she was vindicated. I hated that she had made something and it made her right.
Right.
I know. I hate it. I hate that. I hate that it was so simple.
Yes.
right? And it would have been way more complicated in real life, but they made her kind of know what was going to happen in her infinite wisdom.
But see, the problem with this one, it wasn't even that. Like, it's such a common conversation, like you are going to have your 15 minutes of fame, but that's what it is. It's 15 minutes. They're not going to love you forever. And the doctor is like, yes, they will. This is different. Plus, there is a person down there, and she's like, yeah, but like, I'm surprised it didn't come up. But, she could have easily said, she's going to get old. You won't. And you will be stuck there. It wasn't even, Janeway coming up with a ridiculous scenario of what might happen, and that turned out to be right. Like, it was just common sense. Fame is fleeting. They will move on to the next best thing. And sure enough, they did. They just happened to do it while the ship was still there, which Janeway would have been great if she was like, this is your bed. Bye.
Yeah. I mean, they made it very easy for her to make this declaration that he's going to come crawling back, or it's going to be different. Like,
right.
This is not what it seems like. So that's not necessarily her fault.
Right.
But they could have written it with a little bit more sophistication.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I didn't like that part. And this is the part where if you're not going to have a B plot, then maybe you should flesh out the storyline so he's not just a 10-year-old.
Right.
Yeah, I would have liked it if they had delved into this whole, because they're like centuries ahead of humans.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Surely they would have a better way of getting home. Right.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's probably the part that's the most frustrating about this episode is there's no B plot, so it's not tighter. But also the way the doctor is handling all of this stuff, is yes, he is a computer. Yes, he hasn't had life experiences, but he should have a pretty wide database of these things in general. And just because it's happening to him for the first time, that doesn't mean that he should be this naive about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is in his character to make a rash decision like
yes.
this.
Yeah.
So that's fine, but it felt very dilute in terms of, except for the ethical dilemma and moral dilemma that was smacking us in the face the whole time.
Right.
So the question is, Jonathan, is this a genuine Star Trek episode?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad episode. It's just Voyager. It can always be better.
I don't know. I feel like we're on it's walking a fine line in terms of the how novel the science fiction is. Because what's the science fiction in this? You could say the Komars is the science fiction.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is just Vulcans. These people are just Vulcans. They're bereft of any kind of emotion.
Yeah, but it was...
They express it differently, but it's the same thing.
Right, but it seemed more as though they were never exposed to passion and, artistic... Well, as he said, artistic expression. Yeah. And it's not as though they did have it and they're choosing to not do it because it's not logical. It's just they got so focused on the science and logic of things that they never realized that there was an artistic... that you could express things artistically.
Too much focus on STEM, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and not STEAM.
I disagree, though. I don't think that they were just being introduced to artistic expression. I think what titillated them was the expression of math. It was another expression of science and math that they had never conceived of before, and that was what was interesting to them, not that they were being moved every time.
Right. I guess that's true.
They made it seem like, they actually were very explicit about that in that final performance, where they kept showing the shot of the love interest, and she was just showing nothing. She was nothing there. She was waiting for her turn, basically.
Yeah.
And then they kept cutting back between her, the doctor, and Janeway, who was in tears.
Right.
So that was trying to show us that, these people, there's no hope for them in terms of getting something out of what the doctor can give them.
Right.
And I felt like they haven't been exposed to something new in the sense of a new emotion. They don't have emotion. So
right, it was just a new scientific discovery. Yeah.
Right. So is there a novel expression of science fiction in this?
I'm thinking. I just wanted to let you know, like that. That wasn't me waiting for you to respond or like ignoring you. I'm trying to.
That wasn't you. I've already answered this, so I'm going to not talk. Because the idea is there.
Right.
That this race could be very interesting. Give them something else, something that's novel. That is, I mean, it's okay to make them like Vulcans.
Right.
There's only so many ways you can make these types of Star Trekian aliens.
But I still say finding math in music so interesting, so unique, that they become obsessed with it, which they did. I think that is a more unique expression of sci-fi than we have seen in other episodes.
The concept, yes, I will agree that this race finds something interesting mathematically about music, but is it explored then? Or is it just the same shot or the same? Is it just the same scene over and over again?
I mean, yes, it is to a certain extent until kind of the end where she says, "I've composed this for you," and he's like, "This is very complex," and she's like, "But you're a computer," and then she's like, "All right, well then I'm going to build my own computer to do it."
By the way, I actually enjoyed the performance of the new Doctor. I liked that, whatever that piece of music is, whether they arranged it and made it for the show or if it's something. I tried to find if it was an actual piece. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I was supposed to be something that sounded very mathematical and angular and not musical at all.
Right.
And I felt like, oh, this is cool. I would like to listen. I wish it went on.
Right. I mean, it kind of did, even after it was, the scene was no longer showing how complex this new, I mean, it's not a doctor at that point, but the new program was. It continued singing as the doctor walked away.
Right.
I liked, going back a little bit, I like that she was like, "Oh, we're on a first name basis now," and I was like, are we going to comment on the fact that he doesn't have a first name?
Nope. Definitely not. But he never got one.
But yeah, I mean, I still say, like, it is explored enough for me to say that this is proper Star Trek.
See, what would have put it over the line,
Right.
for sure, is a B plot
Right.
of some kind.
Yep.
With B'Elanna or something like that.
Yeah. I don't think it was explored as much as it should have been, or as much, enough to make it interesting, but I think it was explored enough to justify that it was presented in a novel or unique way, and it was explored in the plot.
I need something. There needs to be something that's like, oh, that's interesting. Because it's all front loaded if that's the case.
Right. It is. It's
Because nothing happens after that, right?
Right. Well,
like
it's front loaded, and then it's the same stanza repeated over and over and over until we get to the end and we get that denouement of her just taking the program and expanding it to be what they want and throwing away the old model.
I mean, this is one of those barely ones then.
Yeah.
It's like it's only in name only. Like it's a checkbox.
Yeah.
With this
yes.
one.
Yes. And I know how much that bugs you when it's barely there.
It's not. It's almost not there. But I guess it's like, I feel like the only reason that I'm letting this go is because if they had done, like, they're so close to being able to do my idea that that makes it fine. My headcanon makes it science fiction to me.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. Like, I am saying that, again, it's just Voyager. Like,
Yeah.
There's this great idea that they present, and that's all they do with it.
They don't take it anymore.
Yeah, they don't take it. Yeah, they don't explore it. And when they do, it's just, oh, well, I can't even say. Like, they have two people talk about it rather than actually exploring it.
Yeah, or have them show us that because of the Doctor's singing, they're able to find some new technological discovery because they had never thought about math in that way.
Right.
And it inspires them to do something where they can do something, They don't even say that.
Right.
Just that they like it. All right, fine. But it's in protest.
That's
Want
fine.
it noted in the record.
But did you like the episode?
I thought it was okay.
Right.
It was just okay.
Yep.
I actually liked the fight that the Doctor and Janeway get into when he says, "I'm going to leave." She's like, "You can't leave.
Yeah.
Your alarm clock. You can't leave. What are you talking about?"
Well, and
he's like,
no, go ahead.
well, and he's like, "I'm not an alarm clock." And she's like, "I know you're not an alarm clock, but you're an alarm clock." He's like, "See, you did it again." She's like, "Oh, you're right. Okay, fine."
Yeah.
That's the discussion that they had. I enjoyed it. Like, there's something about it that was like, yeah, Janeway is kind of put in her place temporarily. because she was doing what he was telling her she was doing.
Right. Well, but I did like that part where she was like, "You're a part of the ship," and he's like, "You're doing it again," and she's like, "That's not what I mean." I really liked that moment because, she has said that before to other people, and when they're human, they don't even think about it being just you're a component of this larger machine. And he took offense to that, And she's like, "No, I have lots of machines that are friends."
She goes and starts stroking the replicator. See, he's my friend too.
Right.
That would have been great if they have Janeway just be this bigoted person and she doubles down. They just double down on Janeway being totally bigoted against machines of any kind.
And then 7 of 9 comes on. She's like,
That'd be
"Mother."
great. Yeah, and then you make 7. You make 7 way smarter than her, and she can't take it.
Right.
There's a whole season of Janeway plotting to murder 7 because she can't take that there's somebody smarter than her and she's a machine.
I think not plotting to murder her, just waiting for her to disobey, or something.
Nope, go big or go home. That's what I say. Murder.
All right.
Wants to murder 7. I mean, she doesn't know. It starts off small. She starts sabotaging 7. 7 is only being assigned to clean warp coils, that kind of thing. And then she does it perfectly. And she's like, damn it. Right. So smart.
Well, and in so doing, like while she's in the engineering, she comes up with a method of streamlining, their propulsion system and cutting their time in half or something.
Yeah. And she directly contradicts Janeway all the time and is right.
Right.
Tuvok's like, well, she has a point, Captain. This would work a lot better.
Well, she has a point, Captain.
Just turn her into a mean girl. Oh, it'd be so great.
But they didn't do that.
They didn't do that. Okay, well, so we decided it is a proper Star Trek episode in protest.
Yeah.
Name only.
Yep. All right, well, let's see what we're watching next.
Okay.
And it is a Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 6, Episode 11, where it's Waltz.
Sounds amazing.
Weird. So I'm looking through the blurbs, and all of the. Oh no, there's another.
So I have a blurb from Amazon, which I don't know if it's the full blurb or not.
Yeah, like
because there are an ellipses at the
there
end.
is. Yeah. Well, and so
I didn't know. I kept clicking on it in Amazon, like nothing was happening. I was like, okay, well, I guess this is the end.
Okay, yeah, that must be the end of it. So there's another one. I was looking through the other ones to see if there were any others that had ellipses. And there is one, episode 25, and it said, "Meanwhile on the station, Quark, ... And so I was like, okay. So I've been trying to click on it and on Waltz, and it didn't expand. So I clicked on the Quark episode, and it did expand. So that means this one, genuine, the blurb does end with an ellipses. So
The first one and last one ever, by the way.
right. The blurb says, while en route to Guldakat's war crimes hearing, the ship carrying them is attacked. Dukat escapes with an injured Sisko, and they crash on a planet.
It's not they crash on a planet.
No.
It's they crash on a planet. Why would they do that?
They crash on a planet. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I mean, the next step would be a question mark at the end of the ellipses. And they crash on a planet?
Right. On a planet.
It'd be great if all of them were that way. Like the person who's writing these is not a Star Trek fan. It doesn't understand why anybody would like it. And so he builds in his disdain for Star Trek at the end of these.
Oh,
The ship carrying them is attacked? Like it doesn't get it. Just doesn't get it at all.
But the way I was taking the question mark at the end was he doesn't even finish to see where they crash. So he's like, and they crash on a planet?
Yeah. Doesn't care to find out.
Right. Yeah. Would have been great if there was no prepositional phrase there, and they crash.
I'm surprised it's 2 sentences that they put in that much time and effort.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'm cautiously optimistic that something interesting will happen.
Right.
That it will not be more political machinations.
Well, and I just think it's interesting that we've gone from Virtuoso to Waltz. Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, it wouldn't be the first time that the random generator has done that.
oh,
It's seemingly
yeah.
connected to disparate Star Trek episodes.
Right? Yeah. I wonder, do Goldacott and Cisco? I don't even know. Like,
Did they dance?
Yeah.
Are they going to dance?
so. All right. Well, I've been Jonathan,
And I have been Paul.
and this has been The Measure of an Episode.
But you already knew that.
Gotta get that little whimper in there.
Yeah. Little pant.
Yeah.
But you already knew that.